I operated with my bare hands when even soap was a luxury. My wooden table was covered in a gruesome layer of old blood, a stained tapestry that told stories I wished to forget. The stench of decay, mixed with desperation, clung to the air, a heavy shroud that suffocated hope. How can I heal these people? I thought, wrestling with the despair that clawed at my heart. The plague loomed over us like a dark cloud, but I refused to yield. Yet, the true test began when a distraught mother rushed into my small, dimly lit chamber, cradling her feverish child in her arms, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. The child was barely breathing, frail and pale, his skin almost translucent. It looked as though he had one foot in the realm of the living and the other in the grasp of death. The mother's wail pierced my soul, a raw and primal sound that echoed in the corners of my mind, freezing my thoughts. "What can you do?" she begged, her voice cracking in desperation. "Please, save him." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 1,000 failures pressing heavily on my chest. My practice was built on ancient teachings, whispered secrets that passed down through generations, treatments that often felt like mere superstition. I had no medicines, no sophisticated tools, just a handful of herbs and an unwavering belief in the natural world. But would it be enough? In that moment, I leaned closer to the child, inhaling the mixture of sweat, fever, and fear that enveloped him. I could feel the hopelessness clawing at me, a bitter taste in my mouth. In my mind, I floated between despair and resolve. I can't fail this mother, I thought. But our existence was a frail candle flickering in a storm. As I began the treatment with the meager resources I had, the room felt filled with shadows, whispers of doom, each herb crushed in my palm. Every mixture brewed over the flickering flame was an act of faith. Every gesture was both prayer and plea. As the hours crawled by, I watched the mother's anxious glances. She clutched her son tightly, as if she could stitch him to life with her love. I could feel her energy pouring into him, a fragile tether connecting them both in this grim reality. Sweat dripped down my forehead, mingling with my own fear. "Would you have done the same?" I whisper now in the echoing silence of my chamber. "Would you have faced this horror, knowing there were no guarantees, no assurances this would work?" At last, as I mixed garlic crushed between my teeth with honey, hoping the pungent remedy would draw out the fever, a glimmer of true despair settled into my bones. The ancient remedies helped push back the darkness, but as night fell, a new challenge emerged, one that would test me far more than I ever anticipated. But that was nothing compared to what came next. The town began to succumb to chaos when word spread that the court had decided to quarantine us. With the plague burning through homes like a wildfire, panic took root. People were running through the cobblestone streets yelling, "The dead walk among us!" I braced myself for the inevitable. That night, as I prepared to rest, I heard a commotion outside my door, a raucous gathering of townspeople demanding answers, searching for someone to blame for their suffering. They came for me. I couldn't breathe. With pounding hearts, desperate eyes, and hands gripped with fear, they stormed my humble abode, shouting accusations and curses as if I were the harbinger of their doom. "To the pyre with the witch," someone yelled. "She's been casting spells." In that moment, I stood there, my hands trembling, the remnants of herbs still caked under my fingernails, the smell of sweat and despair mingling in the air around me. My heart was a drumbeat of dread. What if they're right, I thought. What if my efforts lead to more suffering? I thought of the child, the mother, and all those faces I had witnessed contorted in pain and fear. Was I truly a healer, or simply a fool playing a game against fate? Silence fell in the crowd as I took a step forward, the air thick with uncertainty. "I may not have the answers," I said, my voice trembling, "but I believe we can fight this. Not with violence, but with courage." Their faces shifted from rage to confusion, the murmur of doubt intertwining with the accusation. This was their choice to make. They could choose to kill the messenger or to listen. And at that moment, amidst the flickering light of the torches, I realized I was not alone in this battle. But what happened next shook me to my core. As the days dragged on, every hour felt like a trial by fire. I turned to the whispers of those who came before me, delving deep into the remedies of old. I wandered through the hills, gathering potent herbs under the light of a waning moon, feeling the cold earth beneath my feet anchoring me to this realm. Then I found myself before an aged, bent figure, an old woman who lived on the outskirts of the village, her hair white, like the fog that enveloped the land. She was known for her remedies, but her touch was feared. Her voice trembled as she handed me small vials. "Nothing has the power of faith." She smiled, revealing toothless gums. "But these will help." I felt the warmth and energy in my hands as I placed the vials in my satchel, hope flickering like a candle fighting against the wind. I was starting to understand. I thought that in this world of suffering, hope was the greatest medicine we had. I gave life to what those few vials contained. Back in the village, moments turned to blur and chaos, the cries of the sick echoing in my ears. I wanted to save everyone, yet in my heart, I knew that was impossible. Every time I walked into a home, I carried the weight of potential death with me. But I also brought with me the understanding that I was not just a vessel for medicine. I was a bearer of hope. In the depths of despair, the mother of the child I had treated weeks ago appeared. She asked if I could save more lives. I turned to face her, seeing the light of determination reflected in her eyes. "I can," I promised, and for the first time, I began to understand the weight of my words. And then, I witnessed something unexpected. As I began to stir hope within the hearts of others, I found that the village began to change. Rumors of healing spread quickly. The sick began to rally together, sharing tales of miraculous recoveries, fueled not only by the herbs, but by the sheer will to survive. When I visited homes, I was met with courage in the faces that once filled with fear. These people, once divided by fear and desperation, began to lift each other up. I felt a thrill course through me, as if the community was embracing the power they had forgotten they possessed. In the shadow of death, I discovered life. With each healed wound, each resolved ailment, the village reclaimed its soul. We were in this together, and the whispers of despair transformed into a chorus of hope. I became part of their strength, a thread woven into the fabric of their resilience. How ironic that in trying to save lives, I had found my own. But this journey was not without its scars. I still bore the memories of those I could not save, and those I failed to reach in time. The weight of their ghosts lingered in the corners of my mind, yet each one drove me forward, motivating me to fight. As I look back now, I realize the greatest lesson I learned in that time was not from the herbs or potions, but from the spirit of the people I fought alongside. Hope is the most potent potion, the balm for every wound, the lifeline that we sometimes forget we hold. If this story haunted you like it haunted Maif, you found a flicker of hope amid the despair. I invite you to subscribe. Join us on this journey in the shadow of the past with medieval stories. And together, we'll unearth tales that remind us of the strength of the human spirit. The village transformed, emerging from the ashes of despair, like a phoenix. Where fear once lived, laughter took root, the cries of the children ringing out across the streets, a melody I had thought lost forever. Each day held new promise, and in the faces of those I treated, I saw reflections of resilience that stirred something deep within me. The healing process was fraught with challenges, each one teaching me more about the fragility of life and the strength found in community. We began to share not just remedies, but stories. The tavern became our haven, a gathering place where fears were aired, laughter echoed, and hope flourished. Stories of loss mingled with tales of survival, creating a tapestry richer than any single thread of despair could weave. One evening, while circled around a flickering fire, a young girl named Eliza approached me. Her eyes were bright, like stars fighting against the night. "Will you tell us more about the herbs you use, old man?" she asked, her innocence shining through. "What do you want to know, child?" I replied, stifling a chuckle at the title. "Will it really save my father?" she questioned, her small fingers twisting nervously around the hem of her dress. It was then that I realized the depth of my responsibility. I was no longer just a physician. I was a beacon of hope, a lifeline for those who clung desperately to their loved ones in the throes of illness. "I cannot promise that I can save him, but I will do everything within my power to try," I responded, meeting her gaze with resolve. But as the days turned into weeks, the weight of those promises hung heavy around my neck like an iron collar. With every patient that crossed my threshold, I felt the ripple of their expectations, their hopes, and their fears. I worked endlessly grinding herbs, concocting mixtures, and tending to wounds. Each drop of sweat, each aching muscle, reinforced my commitment to their fight against the looming specter of death. The nights were the hardest. Lying awake, I could hear the hushed whispers of dying men, the ragged breaths of those who remained clinging to the edge of existence. What haunted me most were the faces of the ones I couldn't save, their names etched in my memory like an unshakable curse. Guilt gnawed at me, a relentless beast that refused to let go. I recall vividly one night, the moon hanging low and full, casting a silver glow on the cobblestones. A desperate knock on my door pulled me from my restless sleep. Stumbling into the cool night air, I found a father holding a lifeless child, his face twisted in agony. "Please, do something," he cried, his voice raw and broken. "I have nowhere else to turn. I can't lose her." In that moment, time froze. I felt my heart seize, my stomach twist into a tight knot. But as I looked at the father's pleading eyes, something stirred within me, a flicker of determination. I couldn't afford to hesitate. "Bring her inside," I urged softly. Once settled, I worked quickly, grasping at desperate hope as I rolled up my sleeves and dove into the familiar chaos of healing. I mixed herbs as I had countless times before, my hands moving almost instinctively as I whispered words of encouragement to the child, hoping against hope that she could hear me. But despite my fervor, the situation felt dire. Minutes felt like hours as I coaxed warmth back into her tiny body, my heart pounding in a race against time. The pangs of helplessness rushed over me like waves, washing over my head, threatening to pull me under. Still, I fought. I refused to abandon the fight. Just when it seemed the darkness would claim her, I saw the slightest hint of color return to her cheeks. I held my breath, focusing every ounce of my being on her recovery. Each second stretched, the room filled with an electric tension, solitude echoing quietly among the walls. Finally, with a raspy sound, she coughed, gasping for breath as life flowed back into her body. The father and I exchanged stunned glances, a mingling of disbelief and relief. "It's a miracle," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. In that instant, I understood that what I was doing was more than treating illness. It was a dance with life itself. Every heal, every triumph propelled me forward, my own doubts subsiding momentarily in the face of that joyful reunion. But it wasn't always victorious. Many still suffered, pain suffusing through the community like a creeping fog. One evening, as I walked through the village, I saw despair etched into the faces of those I had grown to care for deeply. Their pain was mirrored in my heart, a shared burden, a shadow that loomed larger than any one individual. And amidst that realization, I began to think of the power of unity. What if I could teach them to heal themselves? Knowledge would be the greatest remedy. With the villagers united in purpose, perhaps we could strengthen our defenses against the encroaching darkness. Would you stand still while someone screamed for help? I pondered, recalling the feeling of helplessness as I had witnessed suffering time and time again. With renewed determination, I gathered the villagers one evening under the flickering light of torches and the warmth of a long table, overflowing with simple foods. I stood, heart pounding, before the crowd, my breath hitching in my throat. "We can learn to heal together," I proclaimed. "Each of you bears the wisdom of the land, the strength to create and nurture life. Let us unite, share our knowledge, and lift each other from despair." Their eyes widened with curiosity and hope, whispers rustling through the crowd. Each person wore their stories like armor, their lives intertwined in a tapestry of shared experiences. Over the next weeks, we formed a council of Hilesa Guild, if you will, gathering each evening to share what we had learned and discovered. In the days that followed, I demonstrated techniques for gathering herbs, distilling oils, and mixing remedies. The villagers began to flourish. Hands that were once idle began to create healing potions, balms, and tinctures. Knowledge flowed as freely as the laughter echoing off the village walls. And with each lesson shared, we found strength in our shared humanity. But even with this newfound resilience, the terror of the plague reminded us that our struggle was not yet over. It loomed like an approaching storm, a reminder that we were at war, not just against an unseen foe, but for the very essence of our lives. And then, amidst this unity, I knew we had to reach further. The wind carried word of a nearby city, one reportedly filled with wise doctors who had ventured into the darkness, battling the plague with vigor. Could they offer us guidance? Could they help us stem the tide of death that threatened to consume our home once more? Thus, our journey took shape. A group of brave souls gathered, their courage born from the strength we had cultivated. We set out, the night sky overhead sparkling with stars, guiding our way to the city that could lead us to answers. As we ventured forth, I turned to look back at my village. They had become my family, a collection of warriors ready to face whatever fate had in store. I felt pride swell within me, igniting the fire of determination that propelled me forward. If this story resonates deep within you, if you feel the pulse of history pushing against your heart, join us on this journey as we uncover the past, subscribe to medieval stories, and experience tales of resilience, healing, and triumph through the shadows of history. As we journeyed towards the city, the landscape transformed before our eyes. The rolling hills gave way to a network of dirt roads, lined with wildflowers, the vibrant hues swaying gently in the breeze. With each step, we carried not just our hopes, but the collective dreams of our village, the weight of their expectations resting upon our shoulders. Nightfall cloaked us in shadows, the moon casting a silvery glow that illuminated our path. We shared stories, laughter breaking the tension as we huddled together for warmth. It was then that I felt a surge of kinship unlike any I had known. Each member of our party, young and old, with their unique skills, became vital threads in the tapestry of support that we wove around us. Finally, after days of travel marked by exhaustion and determination, we reached the bustling city. The air buzzed with the sounds of life merchants hawking their wares, children chasing one another in gleeful abandon, and the tantalizing aromas of diverse foods wafting through the streets. Yet, beneath a facade of vibrancy lay a grim truth. I could see the shadows of sickness flickering in the eyes of passers-by, their skin pale and drawn. We approached a grand building, its stone facade weathered but proud. It was the center of Hilinga Sanctuary, littered with the whispers of those who had come before us seeking salvation. As we stepped through the heavy wooden doors, the mingling scents of herbs and medicinal concoctions greeted us like old friends. Within, we encountered a figure cloaked in a long, flowing robe, her hair silvered with age. She was the lead physician, known throughout the land for her wisdom and healing abilities. Her presence commanded respect, and as we introduced ourselves, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. "We come seeking knowledge," I stated, my voice steady despite the anticipation brewing in my chest. "Our village suffers, and we yearn to learn how to fight this plague." Her eyes were shrewd, piercing into our souls as if weighing our intentions. "Knowledge is a weapon," she replied, "but you must wield it wisely. It demands responsibility and humility." We spent countless hours in the healing hall. She demonstrated ancient techniques, revealing the secrets of herbs long forgotten and remedies that thrived in the earth. There were lessons in the art of distraction, how to soothe the mind and spirit of the sick while the body fought the unseen enemy within. One afternoon she called me aside. "You have a unique spirit," she observed while kneading a fragrant paste in her hands. "You blend faith with the power of nature. What you must remember is that every life is precious, but not every illness can be cured." Those words lingered in my thoughts as we returned to our village, a wealth of knowledge and practices tucked carefully into our hearts. The journey back was lighter, buoyed by the hope that we could conquer the challenges that awaited us. Upon our return, we gathered the villagers in the same tavern where our journey had begun. Faces were wrapped in silent anticipation, eyes wide with expectation. As I stood before them, I felt every heartbeat echoing my own. "We have returned with new knowledge," I proclaimed, my voice ringing through the dimly lit space. "Together, we will learn and adapt. Together, we will fight." As I began to share what we had learned, I saw the flicker of belief shine bright in their eyes. We formed teams, assigning roles: gatherers, mixers, caretakers. Each person became a vital part of our community's recovery, a piece of the puzzle that would contribute to our larger fight against the encroaching darkness. In the following days, we worked tirelessly, each sun rising with renewed purpose. We blended remedies crafted from the herbs we had gathered, and bolstered our potions with the knowledge learned in the city. The tavern swelled with life. Laughter mingled with the sounds of grinding herbs and the bubbling of pots over a fire. Our spirit intertwined with the sense of unity that had taken root among us. Yet, amidst the bustle, the weight of the plague never fully lifted. One evening, as I walked through the village, I was approached by an elderly woman. She looked fragile, her skin an intricate map of lines, yet her eyes burned with intensity. "Doctor," she whispered, her voice quivering, "my son lies ill at home. We've tried everything, but nothing seems to ease his pain. Take me to him," I said without hesitation, feeling an urgency swell within me. As we arrived at their modest home, the atmosphere was thick with despair. The boy lay pale and still, the breath rasping from his lips as if each inhale was a monumental effort. The mother's fragile frame trembled beside him, her worry palpable. I approached cautiously, gently placing my hand on the boy's forehead. "We will not lose him," I murmured, grounding my voice with resolve. But doubt crept in. I pulled out the remedies we had developed in the village, the tinctures infused with life's essence. I could feel my heart racing, a rush of adrenaline and fear. As I administered the first dose, I held my breath, praying that hope would work its magic. Hours turned into the slow crawl of minutes, the silence thickening like fog. I watched the boy closely, hardly daring to blink. I felt the room pulse with tension, the weight of uncertainty seeping into my bones. Then, just as resignation began to settle in, I saw color return to his cheeks, slow and timid at first. But it was undeniable. The boy stirred, a faint whimper slipping from his lips. Relief burst forth in my chest. A promise fulfilled, the flicker of life becoming a flame once more. As the days rolled on, the village began to rally. News of those who were healing spread like wildfire, fanning the embers of hope. People began to share their own experiences, forming bonds and forging new connections through stories of suffering and survival. I was honored to stand witness. As mothers treated their children, elders shared wisdom with the young, and families learned to heal together as one unit. We had become stronger, fighting not just for survival, but for a future where despair did not hold sway over our lives. But still, the shadows crept around the edges of my heart. The losses had not been forgotten, and the memories of those who had fallen lingered like specters above us. I had found life in the shadows, yes, but the darkness of death was always lurking just beyond our perception. Could you stand still while someone screamed for help? I grappled with the question, echoing in my mind. With every life I saved, I felt the weight of those I couldn't reach, and so it became my mission. We would not stop here, not while the plague still raged in our neighboring villages. Together, we would venture out, spreading our knowledge and hope to those who remained in despair. If you too feel compelled by this journey, if the battle against darkness resonates within you, join us as we uncover the strength that lies within the human spirit. Subscribe to Medieval Stories, and together we will explore these timeless tales of resilience, healing, and unwavering hope in the face of adversity. Our resolve firmed, We began to prepare for the journey ahead. The villagers rallied together, each one eager to contribute to aid in our mission to spread hope and knowledge. We gathered supplies, herbs, dried roots, simple instruments crafted from wood and secured provisions for the road. I felt an unquenchable fire igniting within each one of us. We were no longer victims of the plague, but warriors against it. As we set out, the air was electric with anticipation. Our group grew larger as villagers joined the cause, ensuring that the message we bore would reach every corner affected by despair. We marched with purpose, our hearts beating as one, fueled by the knowledge that we were not alone in this fight. The journey was arduous, each step an echo of the burdens we had borne together. The landscape shifted. Rolling hills gave way to sprawling fields, and forests thick with the scent of earth hung heavy in the air. Along the way, we encountered small hamlets, some thriving, others teetering on the edge of despair, whispering tales of a creeping illness that gnawed at their lives. Arriving at our first village, we were met with suspicion eyes narrowed and hearts shielded. A council of wary elders stood at the entrance, distrust evident in their posture as they questioned our motives. "We come bearing knowledge," I spoke, my voice steady but laced with urgency. "We wish to share our remedies and restore hope where there is none." The elders exchanged glances, skepticism mingling with the curiosity that flickered in their eyes. "What do you know of our suffering?" one asked, his voice gruff but edged with concern. I felt the weight of my experiences wash over me, the memories of those I had lost and the battles I had fought rushing to the forefront of my mind. "I have witnessed the effects of the plague firsthand," I replied, my voice rising with fervor. "I've watched lives extinguished, and I refuse to let it claim more. Allow us the chance to help you." Slowly, I could sense the tension begin to dissipate. They softened, their wariness giving way to intrigue. We spent the day sharing knowledge, gathering in their communal hall, our voices rising in a harmonious blend of hope and despair. I led demonstrations on the preparations of herbal remedies, the sounds of grinding roots and boiling waters filling the air as stories intertwined with laughter, edging back the darkness that had gripped their hearts. The village transformed before my eyes, their skepticism melting away like snow beneath the sun. As night fell, I watched the flickering candlelight dance across their faces, a mixture of amazement and enthusiasm sparking in their eyes. They were thirsty for knowledge and eager to reclaim their lives from the clutches of the plague. But, as was so common in this journey, embracing hope meant confronting the specter of death. A hush fell over the crowd when a mother stepped forward, her hands trembling, clutching a small bundle. Inside lay a frail infant, pale and listless, an embodiment of their community's struggle. "Please save her," she whispered, her voice breaking, heart wrenching in its fragility. "She is all I have left." My heart sank, shadows clothed in dread creeping back into my mind. I approached her cautiously, the weight of her gaze heavy upon my shoulders. "We will do everything in our power to help her," I pledged, my voice carved from determination. I unwrapped the bundle and took the tiny hand in mine, warmth lacking, skin slick with fever. I knelt down and began to work mixing soothing tonics, cleaning the child's fragile skin with gentle hands. The gathering held its breath, a choir of hope and dread intertwining as I fought against the clock, desperation clawing at my sanity. Minutes felt like hours. I focused intently, drawing from all the knowledge I had acquired, layering each remedy with a whisper of encouragement. Around me, the community began to hum with life. Mothers offered reassurances, fathers clutched their children tightly, their hopes mingled with mine. Finally, the infant stirred gently, her eyes fluttering open as if teasing the grip of unconsciousness. The mother gasped, tears spilling from her cheeks, a mixture of disbelief and pure elation. And with each ragged breath the child took, the room erupted into jubilant cheers, a celebration that rang clear through the night sky. The power of unity surged through me like wildfire. No longer just a physician, but a part of something greater, of collective strength, of unwavering resolve. In that moment, I knew we were standing on the edge of understanding, the remnants of despair dissipating like morning mist. But the journey was far from over. We had lit a spark, kindled a flame of hope in this village, but the shadows of the plague loomed ever closer. Each victory came with its own set of challenges, a reminder that our fight was not solely against illness, it was against fear itself. As we continued our travels, we reached village after village, sharing our knowledge and gathering strength from one another. We transformed despair into a powerful force. What initially had felt intangible became woven into the very fabric of our existence. In another village, I met a wise woman named Eileen, an elder who had tended to the sick for decades. Her hands were calloused yet deft, and she brought a wealth of knowledge that meshed seamlessly with my own. Together, we crafted remedies, infused with the wisdom of generations, strengthening our community through the sharing of experiences and techniques. As we grew in numbers, our combined voices reached further, merging with the whispers of those still shackled by grief. We taught the power of herbal tinctures, the healing touch of a warm hand, and the art of distraction through the sharing of stories and laughter. But even amid triumphs, my heart remained tethered to the memories of those long-lost. Night after night, as the stars blinked above, I would sit alone, staring into the flickering fire, the weight of every face I couldn't save pressing against my chest. Could you stand still while someone screamed for help? The question echoed, a painful reminder of the fragility of life. Yet within the pain lay the seeds of resilience. For every life saved, I found purpose. For every whisper of agony, a determination to ensure that no one else would experience that despair without the embrace of community. We'd become a life-linear force against the darkness that had reigned for far too long. Day by day, we wove together our strength-gathering herbs, crafting remedies and sharing wisdom to ensure that the flame of hope burned bright amidst the shadows of despair. As we marched on, if you too feel the calling to confront the darkness, if these tales resonate within you, subscribe to Medieval Stories and join us in uncovering the profound spirit of humanity, a spirit that continues to rise even when shrouded by the thickest of shadows. Together, we will journey through these historical tales, reclaiming the light that shines brighter in unity.